Have you ever wondered what would happen if a sacred text from over 1400 years ago contained detailed descriptions of our universe? Descriptions that modern science is only just now beginning to confirm? It's a pretty fascinating idea, right? Well, that's the core of the argument we're going to explore today. Let's dive in and see what the claims are.
Okay, let's start big. And I mean really, really big. The cosmos. Just take a look at the swirling galaxy, home to billions upon billions of stars. It's a spectacle of creation so vast, it's almost impossible to really wrap your head around.
All right, now from that infinite expanse, let's do a complete 180 and zoom all the way down, way down, to something much smaller, but honestly, no less complex. This is the intricate world of the honeybee. I mean, look at that. It's a masterpiece of natural engineering and social order.
And finally, let's turn to something even more personal. The very beginning of human life itself. What you're looking at is the microscopic journey of our own development. It's a process of incredible complexity, totally hidden from the naked eye, that science has only recently been able to map out in detail. So you've got the cosmos, the honeybee, and the human embryo. Three completely distinct wonders of the natural world. On the surface, they seem to have absolutely nothing in common. So what's the connection? What could possibly be the thread that ties these vastly different scientific worlds together?
That question, well, that's at the very heart of the argument we're breaking down today. And the proposed connection? It forms the basis of a truly remarkable claim. The connection, according to the sources we're looking at, isn't a modern scientific theory. No, the claim is that all of these phenomena, the cosmos, the bee, and the beginning of human life, are all described within the pages of the Quran. So just to make it crystal clear, the central argument we're exploring is this, that numerous scientific facts, things we've only discovered in recent times using tools like telescopes, submarines, and powerful microscopes, were already described in the Quran over 1400 years ago. So let's start our journey where we began, way out in the cosmos, to see how this argument applies to things like astronomy and cosmology. Proponents of this view argue that the Quran describes the universe's origin in a way that sounds surprisingly similar to modern cosmology. They point to descriptions of a primary nebula, basically an initial hot gaseous mass, from which everything else, all the stars, the planets, and the Earth itself eventually came to be.
And this verse is often brought up as a key piece of evidence for that claim. The argument is that the phrase, a joined entity, then we separated them, is a really striking parallel to the Big Bang Theory. You know, the idea that our entire universe expanded from a single, infinitely dense point.
And the argument gets even more specific right here in our own solar system. It highlights how the Quran uses different Arabic words for the light from the sun versus the light from the moon. The sun is called a siraj, a shining glory, which implies it creates its own light. But the moon is a nur, a term that's interpreted as a reflected light. And well, that distinction is spot on with what we know today.
Okay, so from the vastness of space, let's bring it back down to Earth. Now we're going to explore the claims related to our own planet, looking at it from a geological point of view.
When it comes to geology, the argument really zeroes in on mountains. The Quran describes mountains as being like pegs or stakes. Now, that's a fascinating comparison, because modern geology teaches us that mountains have these deep roots that extend far down into the Earth's crust, helping to stabilize the tectonic plates, kind of like a peg stabilizes a tent. Moving from land to sea, check out this incredible phenomenon. It's where two different bodies of water meet, but they don't actually mix because of their different densities. The argument points to verses in the Quran that describe a barrier between fresh water and salt water, a barrier that the waters themselves do not cross. This is presented as a description of this exact oceanographic principle.
And sticking with the oceans, the argument also talks about the darkness of the deep sea. As you can see in this diagram, sunlight gets absorbed in layers as it goes down into the water. The deeper you go, the more colors of the light spectrum disappear until you're just left in total darkness. The claim is that the Quran describes this exact layering of darkness, a fact that would have been impossible to know without modern submarines.
Okay, so we've looked at the non-living world of geology and oceans. Now, let's move into the world of living things and explore the claims related to the science of biology.
Now, this is one of the most detailed parts of the argument, the field of embryology. The claim is that the Quran accurately lays out the stages of human creation, step by step, from fertilization to the zygote implanting in the wall of the uterus, and then its development into an embryo.
Okay, This next point is based on one of the most striking visual comparisons in this whole discussion. On the left, you're seeing a photo of a human embryo that's about 25 days old. And on the right, well, that's a leech. The physical resemblance is pretty wild, and it's argued that this is much more than just a coincidence.
And that visual is absolutely key to understanding the linguistic point being made here. The word used in the Quran to describe this early stage of the embryo is alaka. Proponents argue that this single Arabic word has 3 different meanings, and all of them are scientifically accurate. First, its physical appearance, a leech. Second, it's a suspended thing because it's suspended in the womb. And third, it's also like a blood clot, and it clings to the uterine wall for nourishment just like a leech does.
So we have journeyed through these arguments connecting to cosmology, geology, and biology. We've looked at all these parallels drawn between modern science and verses from the Quran.
So to quickly recap, the argument we've explored today claims that the Quran contains knowledge that was way ahead of its time across a bunch of different scientific fields. From how the cosmos began, to the function of mountains, and all the way to the intricate life cycles of animals like bees and our own human development.
And that brings us to the final and most important question that this whole explainer leads to. Looking at all the evidence that's been presented, are these connections a miracle? Are they just a series of really stunning coincidences? Or is it all a matter of interpretation, of us finding patterns in an ancient text because we're looking at it through the lens of modern science? We've laid out the argument. The conclusion? Well, that's for you to consider.